Hello, everyone. Welcome to another learning lab. This time we have Shubha from that next step to that extra step to give us something around fun and isolation. Ooh, two different polarities there. So I'm curious how you did that, and I won't take much of the time. Shubha, please, the floor is yours. The space is yours.
Thank you so much, Lana. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. And I'm very excited to talk about that extra step. I'm very excited to talk about our social club. And just like Lana mentioned, I'm really excited to talk about how, for us, combating social isolation and urban isolation, the solution was the polar opposite of that, which basically is a lot of fun and transformative experiences. So I'm going to tell you guys just a little bit, and I'm going to use visual cues because I find that it's easier to get the point across that way. So I will not take too long, maybe 5 or 10 minutes of sharing my screen, and then the floor is open to questions and you can ask me whatever you want. So there you go. As you can see, we are called That Extra Step. In fact, I founded it with two other people who are here on the call today, which is Hari and Abhay. We've got a very simple agenda when we started That Extra Step. It can seem very simple and maybe a little too simple, but in our experience, we've realized that it really works when we say that meet new people, make new friends. We started with a vision of getting people to socialize and to combat urban isolation because it came from our personal experience of living in urban spaces, coming to the realization that urban spaces are not designed for people to engage with each other very easily. And experiences that we attended individually and together were not designed to enable socializing easily. If you have anxiety around socializing or you have to make an effort around socializing, they're not designed in a way where it's easy for you. And quite often you hear the term, you need to put yourself out there, and you need to put yourself out there. When you do put yourself out there, you're still faced with a wall of deterrence. And for us, the core mission of what we wanted to do is create spaces where all of those walls break away and you can focus on what it is that you came there to do, which is socializing. And this is who we are. We're three of us across three generations, so it became all the more important for us to understand different. We're three people with very different personalities across three generations. I am a very introverted person. Obviously, I was very nervous to be here today and to talk about this, but I think it gives us all the more of an insight into the type of spaces that we want to design and who we're designing for, and to be as inclusive as we can. So for us, it became important to create spaces where the focus was creating a sense of belonging and enabling friendships the best we can. To sum up a little bit about how we started in 2018, and we did a lot of offline gatherings in Bangalore in India. And our focus was Bangalore at that point, and we wanted to sort of slowly expand into other areas in our country. But of course, the pandemic happened and some difficult things happened, but some good things also happened, which I think we need to acknowledge. And for us, the one amazing thing that happened was creating the TES Social Club, an entirely online social club. And for us, it was a really big deal for us to actually call it the social club. You're only here to socialize. You're only here to make friends. You're not here to learn different things. You're not here to work. You're not here to network. You're just here to make friends and you're here to socialize. So it's been just over a year. We celebrated a year in July this year, and we've got about 100 members, and it's a living, breathing thing. It's taken on a personality of its own. It's got its own quirks. So it's been a fabulous journey of a year. And for some reason, my screen isn't working. Sorry, give me one moment. And now to the crux of why we're all here today. Why choose fun, and what made us choose fun and transformative experiences to solve for urban isolation? When we began, we had a lot of different ideas on how we wanted to resolve this. Of course, a lot of it came from our personal experiences of being in spaces and figuring out how best to socialize. As far as I was concerned, my friends moved out of the country, and I was single, and I suddenly found myself in my 30s with no easy way to socialize with anybody. So I did what was generally expected of me, which is put yourself out there. So I attended a lot of different types of gatherings. I went to do a lot of different workshops alone. My personal experience was that, okay, go and learn something, and then you'll meet people that way, or dating apps, and then you'll meet people that way. So I think it came from my personal experience of having tried all of these things. And I realized that the sole purpose of all of these spaces was never really to socialize. It happened as an offshoot, it happened as a byproduct, but it was never really, okay, you know what, you're in your 30s or in your 40s or in your 20s and you're finding it difficult to socialize and to have, you know, a space where you can make new friendships. So I think it came from that space for us, and it came from coming from a hardcore urban space where public spaces are not really designed for you to, you know, interact with people, at least where I am from. And there was a complete lack of finding spaces where you could meet, where you did not really have to spend a lot of money or struggle with you know, these very urban problems of, I'm not going to find parking, I'm not going to find a cab, I can't actually get to this place because there isn't public transport available. Or quite often for us, it's one of those situations where it will take me an hour and a half or 2 hours just to get to a place. So for us, I think understanding that urban isolation comes from a lack of clear urban design and thinking of spaces in a way where humans need to interact with each other, as opposed to the other way around, where we're all in silos and, you know, we're all fairly isolated. And when we were thinking about all of our personal experiences and thinking about what enabled friendships when we were children, and what would enable a childlike curiosity in adults, and what would make this entire process of finding friends easier. And for us, it was quite simply fun. It was really boiling down to the simplest of things. When you were a child and when you were a kid, your parents gave you, for the most part, a sense of safety and security, where if you were put in a space with other children around, it meant that it was safe enough for you to create new friendships. And you put yourself out there, and then you found activities and things to do, and friendships happened because of that. So for us, it then became a space of saying, all right, so how do we recreate that childlike curiosity? How do we recreate that innocence? And how do we, most importantly, remove all barriers where anyone who's socially anxious will still be in a position to put themselves out there and socialize? So we started creating gatherings. It was almost social engineering to say, what are the barriers that come in the way of people socializing? And we sort of slowly started removing them. And I have to say it was a very rewarding experience, because for starters, we call them socials, which means that we were putting it out there that you are here to socialize. You're not here to have a drink. You're not here to network. This isn't anything to do with work. This isn't anything to do with your education. You don't really have to be on all the time. You can sort of relax, let go, and be you, and then find ways to socialize. And then we sort of created a whole bunch of experiences with the specific idea of creating an atmosphere of fun, being goofy, trying things. As you can see from the pictures here, it was more a situation where we would put you out there to say that, okay, be as childlike as you want, be as goofy as you want, just try and be as much of yourself as you want. And so the fun element became very, very integral for us at the TES Social Club. And I'm just going to show you some pictures of what our gatherings were like, and what we did out there. Okay, sorry about that. I'm not entirely sure what happened. Yeah, these are just a couple of other pictures. And that's about it from me. The floor is open. You can ask me any questions you have.
Thank you, Shubha. There, mine. Go for it.
Hi, Shubha. Thanks so much for sharing. Looks really fun. So I'm assuming the photos are 2018.
They're from 18 and 19, yes.
Okay. So how are you gathering now?
So we're entirely online. Since July of last year, we've been entirely online.
So where on the internet do you gather?
So interestingly enough, we've used a combination of different platforms. But if you ask me what our primary platforms are where we gather, we've chosen Telegram because we use a combination of a group where you can use a lot of chatter and then an announcement channel where you only find out when our next gathering is. And then we use a platform called Discord, which used to, if you're familiar with it, it used to be a gaming platform. And then we've seen it sort of go through this big boom. And we were able to sort of have the capability to set it up for our community. So that's where we find that there's a lot of potential to sort of engage. So we've broken it down into different areas. So we've got a space for music, we've got a space for movies, we've got a space for YouTube and content creation, we've got a space for gaming. So ultimately, it also boils down to the community. A lot of the times we found that we wanted people to ask us what they really wanted, and we're in a position to create that space. So we then expanded and we added spaces for purchase recommendations and then travel for when the world opens up a little bit, for sustainable living and hacks around sustainable living. And I think our most popular one is just a meme space where we just drop a lot of memes and a lot of jokes, and we've set up a bot for dad jokes. So it's just a fun space to sort of be in. So that's what we're using, a combination of Telegram and Discord.
Nice. So when you said you started it in Bangalore, right? So now is it across India now? Because you're in Goa, right? And I think you're all over. I see Chennai. I see all these. No one in Mumbai. I'm surprised. So now are you like all over India?
Yes, actually, thank you for asking. We started off in Bangalore, but then thanks to the pandemic and thanks to shifting our social club online, we're actually pan-India at the moment. And while it's interesting for us because the world is opening up and we are, of course, looking forward to having our gatherings offline again, it just means that we now have to find a neutral territory for all of our members to come and gather. We can no longer do it as frequently as we would like. But we're also moving away from a model of meeting regularly for small durations of time. And instead, we're going to be having longer, deeper, more meaningful engagements of longer periods of time is the direction we're sort of going in.
You want to share more about what is an event that's a longer period of time? I'm just curious.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? I'm not sure if it's my Wi-Fi or yours.
No problem. No worries, Shubha. So if you said instead of a short one event, it's gonna be you'll meet up for a longer period of time. What does that look like? Is that you all gonna go on a trip on a weekend, that kind of thing, or?
So we were supposed to have this in April this year, and we didn't end up having it. But what we're looking at having is a summer camp for adults, and it's just really it's really built on the same idea of what are the ways in which we can engage with our childlike curiosity, and what are the ways in which we can make this fun. So it's going to be a week-long summer camp for adults. Honestly, it's something that we've all missed having in our lives. I miss going to summer camp as a child, and I don't see why I shouldn't really. It could be my ulterior motive, but then I'm not really admitting to anything right now. So the idea is to create more meaningful, deeper engagement by getting everybody together for about 7 to 10 days at a time. And it enables us to do a lot more. It enables us to do a lot more with a longer duration. And honestly, I'm only seeing benefits of this because earlier we had a lot of restrictions in terms of how much time we had, how much time we could spend, and how we would engage once a gathering was over. But right now, I have to very honestly tell you, we're all very excited because it's like we're all meeting our friends for the first time, because most of us have only known each other online because it's taken on a whole new avatar, and we're all very excited to physically see each other, and we're constantly talking about how hilarious it's going to be to not be restricted to seeing people in a box anymore, and how strange it's going to be to say, oh my god, you have legs, you can move, you can walk, and how tall are you and how short are you. So it's honestly something we're very excited about.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for sharing.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions for me?
I have a preview of the history somehow. That's why it's also interesting for me to catch up on how things are going. Um, I know that transitioning to online was somehow shaky, yet it seems like now everybody's so used to. What do you think is important when onboarding people from, yeah, from a very face to face to now an entirely online social and what's the social club? So I'm curious of what were your onboarding hiccups and what did you learn from that process?
We've had about 12 different batches of people coming into the social club, and I think the first 3 or 4 batches was invite only. We reached out to people who had already attended our offline gatherings, and it was communicating that, hey, I mean, there is a lockdown and there is a pandemic, but there's no real reason we shouldn't really hang out again. So the first 4 batches, I think, were just all of us inviting people who were already familiar with how we function. But I think after that, it's pretty much been a lot of people who've discovered us as this online only space and an online only entity. And for those of our members who already engaged with us offline, it was a fairly easy process. They knew how we functioned. They knew what our rules were. And one of the important things that I think I forgot to mention is that we're an alcohol-free space. When we were offline pre-pandemic, we encouraged sober curious gatherings because for us, it's something that we believed in. We're not necessarily anti-alcohol, but we believed that we could create, inhibition suppressors that were not necessarily alcohol. So it became easy with the first few batches. But then with the next few batches, it was important for us to sort of set the ground rules on how we work and what we're really about. So we create an experience called an eat and greet. And that's basically our member intake. So if you want to be a member of the social club, you first attend something called an eat and greet, where we welcome you, we tell you what the social club is all about. We even give like a little taster of what our gatherings are like, because we put people in different rooms, we create different games, which is something Hari and Abhay are really excellent with coming up with. And we walk them through some of our community guidelines, what's okay, what's not okay. But if you ask me what the most important thing is in terms of onboarding people, I think it's just the goodwill that we have with our existing members. The first few batches were a little hard for us because it was us doing all of the work. At the moment, I can honestly say we're pretty much hands off, because our older members, because they feel a sense of belonging and because they feel a sense of ownership, it's sort of auto-correcting. If someone's not okay with something, they ask some of the older members on our group. And sometimes a lot of course correction happens. And just by being in the space and observing what the space is like for a while, I feel like the easiest onboarding experience once we are done is just handing people over to our older members. So it becomes a sort of a perpetual handover process where you learn from people who are already in the community. So that's pretty much how it's worked for us. And it's been a real journey over a year to sort of, take all of the learnings with each batch and then figure it out as we go.
I love that eat and greet idea. We were just in the session on Monday by Tamash on the evolution of community. He did mention the importance of food, eating. as a social technology that allows for community to start and to flourish. So I think this is a crucial element that that we need to add in more to organizations to bring that sense of belonging. Any other questions from those who are here?
Yeah, I got a question, and thanks, Shubha. It sounds really exciting. I want to come. Maybe I will.
Hopefully
really
when
cool.
things open up.
Yeah. In starting up, how did you get the very first members, and what was it like to get the first members? I think I'm asking, because I'm launching a community now, so I'm trying to pick up a few tips and tricks from you. So the question really is, in getting the very first members, nurturing them, how did you do that? What kind of tactics did you use? What really works for that?
With doing things offline, I mean, everything, it feels like we've got two personalities, one before the pandemic and one after. Before the pandemic, we literally started in our living rooms, and it started with this seed of an idea of, you just want people to make friends. And so we're going to be creating these experiences. So it started in my living room as well as Abhay's and Hari's. And that was basically our origin story. But couple of things that I believe help with community, right? One of the things that Lana mentioned is food. The second thing that we absolutely believe in is being out in nature. And the third thing is creating spaces that allow people to just let their hair down and just be. So what we did was, when we initially started, our gathering used to happen in a park under a tree. And if there's one thing that I would, well, I cannot stress this last point enough, and that's consistency. We told ourselves that whether there were 2 people or 20 people or 40 people, we would turn up and we would toss a frisbee. And this was nothing to do with competitive sport. This was nothing to do with winning or losing. This was us saying, we're under a tree on a Sunday and we're going to be here every single Sunday, no matter what. So I think it's just turning up. So after a period of time, even if people didn't get the notice from us about, hey, there's this thing that's happening on Sunday and we're meeting under the tree, people would turn up because they knew that at 9:30 or 10 a.m. on a Sunday, they would find us under the same tree at the same place, no matter what. So for us, it was just bringing together elements that allow people to sort of be at ease and then talk to each other and, let their hair down, get their inhibitions down. And then food played a very large role in it. So Sunday after Sunday, we would either have frisbee and a whole bunch of games in the park, followed by a breakfast or a brunch, but under the trees. And it allowed people to have a conversation, because you've had like this crazy activity where you've run around or you've screamed, you've played and you've laughed together. And then now you're actually breaking bread, which is such a fundamentally human experience, and you're doing it together. So I think in combining all of these things or certain elements of it and then showing up consistently, I think those would be some of the biggest takeaways for me. And I think post-pandemic, with the social club being online, not much has changed in the sense that we're there certain days of the week, no matter what. And since last year, I mean, it's been such a roller coaster, right? Things have opened up outside, and that means that people really have a lot of demands on their time. But then on Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, we're there. So whoever wants to come can turn up without worrying about what has changed and what is happening. And consistency is key. And some people on the call here are actually part of our community. And we've had situations where we've got a version of ramen noodles in Bangalore, and we've actually cooked, while on a call with each other. So food, consistency, and fun is what I would say are key things to focus on.
Thank you. That's really, really good advice. Yeah, I'm very grateful. Yeah, thanks, Shubha.
You're very welcome.
Dania? Oh. Mira?
Yeah.
Other questions from the group? I would also want to invite Harry and Abba, if, to share your thoughts of the process that you've been through.
Yeah.
So if you missed the first part of my presentation where 3 of us started this community, and
Go, Harry.
Expanding on Jonathan's question about the initial process, I think the biggest thing that worked in our favor was we were there with the community and spent a lot of time with them, which made the process really easy to hand off. There was a process of trust that was built there. And because we spent so much time with them, we understood each other. All of us knew what we were there for. Very clear intentions were set about what the community was there for. And that allowed us to later take some time off, and we could trust our community to take care of everything that was happening. So time spent with the community, I think, was a really crucial part for us.
Thank you, Harry.
Hi, Abhay. The other thing that I found personally that really worked for me was, that we keep doing as a community, we keep looking inwards also when we plan gatherings, when we are meeting the community, when we're setting some sort of, behavior, or we're setting some sort of activities. And I think from something specific as activities to the direction in which we want the community to grow, we, I think, all turn inwards to see what would we like to be a part of, and what is the kind of community that we would like to be a part of, and what is it that we could contribute. And I think that reference and looking inwards all the time really makes a big difference. It's, the opposite of what Groucho Marx said. We want to be a member in a club that will have us as members. So the idea was to say that what kind of communities do we want to be a part of, and that becomes in a way our reference to say, okay, that's a space we'd like to build. So there is then commitment from us towards what kind of community there is. There is investment in that. So that becomes a fairly easy way to navigate our community and the spaces we want to build. So that's something that I would strongly suggest members, anyone who wants to start a community, to say that, okay, first begin and say, what is it that you'd like to, what is the kind of space you want to be a part of, and then start from there. Use that as a blueprint and begin from there.
Thank you for that. Speaking of blueprint, there's a question from Manish. Manish, would you want to turn your video and your audio on to ask your question?
Yeah, I'll ask my question. Sorry, I'm not putting my video on. I'm just driving to take my daughter to daycare, so I apologize. The question I had is, knowing the three of you a little personally, I know you guys excelled in your corporate jobs. So how difficult was it to pivot to more of this community space, and what was that mental roadblock you guys were facing?
So, like Manish said, he sort of knew, he's a really good friend, also worked with me. So very pertinent question. I think it was about understanding what parts I did not like about being in a desk job and what parts I did like. And in the journey of understanding, why I didn't want to be in those spaces anymore, I think my biggest takeaway was truly the only thing I enjoyed, or the only part I liked about being in those spaces, was the people. And the people I met along the way, the people who've made such a huge difference in my life, the people who continue to make such a huge difference in my life. And it just boiled down to people. And I think it's something that we've sort of discovered for ourselves during the pandemic and during the lockdown as well, is that the thing that we do miss most is human connection. And that's the thing that you miss about going to the office. You miss the water cooler chit chat, you miss going down coffee breaks and meals together. Work, of course, plays an integral role, but what makes these spaces really important for us is just the people. And plenty roadblocks, which I will not really go into, but I think ultimately it just boiled down to, as cliched as it may sound, really truly believing in the fact that this is what we wanted to do. And it truly came from getting a taste of what it could be like and the difference that it could make from our first few gatherings that were really small and intimate and happened in spaces that we were very familiar with, that allowed us to sort of learn and sort of take this forward in different directions. And I think for about a 6 or 7 months, we were figuring things out in terms of how we want to engage with this. It was a lot of falling, dusting off, learning, a lot of intense experiences, a lot of different kinds of rejections that we faced. But I think ultimately what made a huge difference was how rewarding it was to see human connections being made, and to know that we were creating experiences that were meant to be transformational. And we were creating experiences that allowed some amount of impact in people's lives. And through all of these 3 years and through all of the different kinds of experiences we've had, I think the one big key takeaway for us is that we are community builders because we like being community builders.
I think one of the challenges for me is I come from an entrepreneurship. I've run businesses all my life, and to come from that, and it's been a fairly straightforward process in that sense that you have a product or a service and you provide that to a customer, and it's fairly straightforward. But one of the challenges that I faced when it came to looking at community building is to say that there was no reference model, because this is at the end of the day, this is a business. This is an entrepreneurial and a process. It's an enterprise that we're running, and to not have a clear cut some sort of reference saying that, okay, how are such businesses run? What are some basic guiding principles of this type of business? I had experience in manufacturing, which is fairly, which is very old brick and mortar, and it's fairly straightforward how you run that business. Then I ran a design studio, and that was fairly straightforward. Now you run that business. When it came to this, we're like, okay, we need to figure this out from scratch. So that for me, it took some time to figure out, and it's still evolving, it's still growing. Like Shubha said, we try something, it doesn't work entirely. We learn, we watch, we observe, we make note of what isn't working, try and fix it and go forward again. So coming from that kind of background, I found that this type of entrepreneurial venture was a bit of a challenge.
Also have a question from Nicole, who said, I'm curious to know how you're managing fun and connection in a hybrid context, digital and some in real life meetings. I think, so we've just been digital this entire time since 2020. We started as the TES Social Club in July 2020, and we've just been online the entire time. So our fun comes from actually managing our spaces and doing things in our community that are entirely online. And we've had to get very, very creative. But I think what also made a huge difference is that our community is very creative. And in the true sense of community, there are a lot of activities and a lot of gatherings that happen because people want it. We've even had open mics that have been really interesting. And I think we've so far managed to successfully create spaces where people can be themselves and laugh a lot. It is unbelievable how much we laugh together, because all of the ideas and all of the experiences that we want, we're sort of figuring it out for ourselves, even if it is online. And like I said, we've been very creative in crowdsourcing ways of doing things online that should ideally be done offline. So we found a bunch of games. We've even played bingo online because community members were able to source ways of doing this. So truly, it's been a community effort in keeping this going and keeping it as fun as it is in an entirely online space. The hope is to do more in real life gatherings going forward, hopefully one this year as the world starts to seem a bit safer. And that's the journey that we're on. That's the process that we're figuring out, of getting all of our members in one place for one very long summer camp at some point this year. And we're keeping our fingers crossed for that. Thank you, Nicole, and nice to see you. Antonia, do you have a question?
Hi, hello, and well, compliments for the community, because it seems really interesting, and I don't know, you showed us something simple to do. And like Jonathan, I'm starting a community of museum professionals and digital, but it's so difficult. And actually, the tip about the building a kind of habit, actually, it's a very good one. I was actually wondering, I mean, was it all volunteering? I mean, was it, or you had some grants? There was somebody that, I don't know, reminded people about the meetings? There was somebody paid for that? Or just because I found it very difficult, for example, for me to, you know, on top of all the work I do, to also try to keep up the community. So, you know, the only solution I see is to fundraise and pay somebody to do it, because I don't know, I can't manage it, you know, and this is why I really admire your work, because it's incredible. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonia. So since 2019, Abhay Hari and I have been doing this full time, and it is a full-time task. And we are community builders full time, meaning as well as running our own community, we also consult with other people in building community. So that's pretty much how we figure things out. But in answer to your question, I think it's important to, in the true sense of community, ask for volunteers to do things. And I speak for our own community when I say that it's made a real difference. We know that if we're not able to show up for whatever reason, that it will not really stop, that there are people who will take it upon themselves to make sure that it continues to grow, and things that are meant to happen will continue to happen. In terms of consistency, like I said, we've got a schedule going, and there are a few activities. It takes a few months to figure out what works and what doesn't work, and what the community responds to and what they don't. There are a lot of things that we've dropped over a period of time. We've had we've had a couple of experiences that were just very hard to navigate and very hard to give time to. For example, things that take about 3 to 4 hours of your time, which involve watching a movie, those were not things that really work for us over a period of time. So it's a constant process of figuring out what works and what doesn't work. But ultimately, I think sharing of responsibility and consistency are absolutely key, if that helps at all. I definitely feel like you need to have, it's very difficult to do this alone, right? And it is a community. You're not meant to do any of this alone. So having 2 or 3 people who are really invested in the idea and can say that, okay, I mean, you know, this is the amount of time that I can give to something. And so you can take turns in figuring out what it is that you want to engage your community with. And I hear you about digital. It's tough. I mean, you're working all day, and that's something that we find within our community as well. You're working all day in front of a screen, and then community engagement also happens in front of a screen. And so we've had to find ways to do things in a way where it doesn't seem as stressful. So a couple of times in a week, we will have engagements that require you to be face-to-face on Zoom. But a couple of times you can just use Discord, get on an audio. It's sort of like Clubhouse. It somehow takes away the sting of being online, because it's audio only and you don't really have to be there, be presentable, show up a certain way. It just really takes some of the stress of being on video. So we've sort of figured things out in a way where you don't always have to be on Zoom and you don't always have to be on video. So we do listening sessions that don't necessarily require complete and undivided attention. The idea is to just, I need to know that there are people around me when I need them. So we'll have a lot of impromptu conversations. We'll have a lot of listening sessions. Not every single thing requires our community members to be there. But at any given point, we do have a platform to know that you've got a community to sort of talk to, ask questions, to figure things out with.
Yeah, speaking of platform, you know, what made you decide to choose Discord as a platform for your community?
If I have to be brutally honest, it was Hari's persistence with getting us to change our minds, and we're really happy we did. He really got on it. It was actually his baby. So I'm gonna, Hari, do you want to take this question?
Yeah, hi. Discord was actually personal. I didn't go looking for it when the whole pandemic was happening. I ended up using Discord as well to keep in touch with my friend. And there was, when the pandemic initially kicked in, nobody knew what was happening. Nobody knew how long this was going to last. And I went down the rabbit hole of gaming a lot. And my friends were on Discord. And as we started using Discord, we figured there was a lot of functionality to it that could be used for more than gaming. And I found it useful that I could always drop into Discord, and my friends were always there. We were listening to music together, dropping resources, and it was just a simple, you guys coming on Discord and you just go in and join. There's no complicated process of joining once you've joined Discord. And it allows you to make separate spaces for each purpose that you want to have. So functionally, it just made a lot of sense. And within very little time of using it, I knew it was something we needed for our community. It was a space that could be designed for whatever you wanted it to be. And it's been free rolling since then.
Yeah, and I think it was a difficult sell because the UI is not something that we found was the easiest to sort of onboard people to. So Lana, to your earlier question of onboarding, we actually had to figure out ways to onboard. Telegram is easy enough for people to figure out. It's very close to WhatsApp, but Discord is something that requires some amount of onboarding help from our end as well. But then once you're on it and you sort of figure it out, we found the easiest way to get on it is to actually attend one of our gatherings. So we make sure that that's something that we do every new batch that comes, and we ask them to come and join us for a listening session or an experience. So that part really helps as well. It's an unconventional choice that sort of really works for us.
There's a question from Antonio. Is it better than Slack?
It's very similar to Slack, but Slack feels like you're at work, and Discord, for us at least, doesn't feel like you're doing anything work related. But yeah, we have found that people who use Slack find Discord easier to sort of onboard and get used to.
I'm curious, do you have plans on making this as like a model that you can also use for other countries?
Sorry, could you repeat that, Lana?
If you have plans on making this as a model that can also be used for other countries.
Yes, we're actually pretty kicked to do that. We were working with somebody in Europe for a very brief while to sort of blueprint this this entire experience. We're also hoping to evolve in a way where we're able to create experiences that sort of work like an exchange program for communities, where say, for example, Lana, you're in the Netherlands and you have a community and you sort of, or you want to start a community. It would quite simply be, you know what, we have this blueprint, you can actually come see it for yourself and figure out what we're doing and how we're doing and take learnings away from it. But we've got really exciting plans to actually blueprint this in a way where it becomes easy for a lot of communities to use. And we're really excited to have people from across the world come by, meet us, engage with us, and understand how we're doing this. We've got our fingers crossed for things staying safe and remaining safe after it.
Thank you, Shubha. Other questions from it was very for me, like what I said a while ago, I have a preview of the community even before the summit, so I know I know some of the history. But I'm also curious in terms of the membership right now is free, right? And I can't imagine that you have also been shifting into, oh, do we make it as a paid model?
So I think when we started the social club, we wanted to keep the membership free because we started at a very difficult time for everybody, and we've sort of continued to keep our membership free. And for the moment, we will only be charging for the experiences. And it's a situation where if you're not in the true sense of community, it's one of those things where if it's not something that you can afford, it is an open conversation we can have to figure out what it is that you can afford. But at the end of the day, being a part of the community and attending all of our gatherings online continues to be free. And we're hoping as the world opens up, we are in a position to create more experiences that you can choose to be a part of that you'll be charged for. That's sort of the hybrid model that we're looking at.
Other questions? We have Paco who's also joining us. Hi, Paco. It's nice to see you again. So there's no other questions. Shubha, last words about how, how can we also encourage organizations to put in fun and belonging and laughter and all the things that you've shared. How can we encourage them?
I think by having parts of that in your everyday life with any community that you engage with, I cannot stress enough how great it's been for us as well as our community members to sort of be in spaces where laughter is such an integral part of being in this community. We look forward to it after a long day, a long week. It's something that gives us immense joy. And I cannot stress enough how important laughter can be and fun can be to sort of create bonds and make it a little bit easier to engage with other human beings, which honestly in today's day and age is not the easiest thing to do. I find it very difficult to explain it to people older than I am that, you know what, it is not easy to socialize. It is not easy to engage with other human beings. We're at a very difficult, unique space in the world at the moment. And anything that we can do to sort of alleviate that a little bit, we must and should encourage it. And for me, top of that list is laughing together. So it doesn't have to be something that needs to be engineered to a massive extent, but picking a game and playing it online, or we even had, you know what, just start telling us jokes. It's okay if they're bad. You laugh anyway because they are bad. So it's pretty much that, and cannot emphasize on that enough. If you can find a way to laugh together, please reach out to us and we will give you a lot of ideas. We're always here and always open to share our ideas because we've had so much fun with it. So at any given point, please reach out to us. You know where to find us.
Thank you, Shubha. And for those who are here, looking forward to seeing you in an hour and a half. We'll have another session, unplugged session this time, to look at what's keeping us stuck. And speaking of laughter, for the end of our summit, we also have an improv session. So do check out Community Builders That Space for our agenda. And looking forward to seeing everyone also later in the other unplugged sessions and also learning labs. Thank you again, Shubha, for sharing, and looking forward to connecting more with everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank
Please.
you. Great work. Thank you.
If you want to say bye, you can, unmute yourself.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. See you later.
Thanks.
Also, Paco.
Bye.
Bye, Nico.